Welcome everyone. I'm really excited to see all of you here, and thank you all so much for taking some time out of your summer evening to join us to talk about the Alfond Grant and NextGen and dispersing those funds. So, my name is Kate Levier. I am from the Alfond Scholarship Foundation, and I'm joined today by two wonderful colleagues of mine, Mila Tappan and Mary Dyer from the Finance Authority of Maine, or also known as FAME. Mila and I will be doing the majority of the presentation, and Mary will be helping to manage the questions in the chat, anything that comes up there. But Mila and I are really thrilled to be here today to talk to you all about how to request your Alfond Grant and NextGen funds. This graduating class that just graduated. There are some in that graduating class that are the first ones to request their Alfond grants to be dispersed or sent to the post-secondary school, an option that they have chosen. And we are so excited that we have hit this milestone. It's unreal. So it's great to be here. So just a quick overview. Mila and I will be tag teaming the presentation. We may be popping in a little bit as each other are talking, and we'll both handle the questions as well. If you want to just go to the agenda. So just a little overview of what you will hear about today. I'll talk a little bit about the Alfond grant. I'll touch very briefly on NextGen. And then Milo will really take over and talk about how to use the Alfond grant, how to use your NextGen funds, and then any main matching grants that you may have. Mila is amazing at going over all of this information, so I'm glad she is doing this part. But she'll also talk about some real important considerations, the impact on financial aid, if there is any, and then withdrawing your funds. And obviously, we will save time for questions as well. Perfect. So the Alfond Grant is a $500 grant that is a gift to Maine children from the late philanthropist Harold Alfond. So Mr. Alfond really believed that all children deserved the opportunity to pursue their education goals after high school, and he really wanted to help out everyone that he could in Maine with a $500 grant that was at really the very start of that child's life. We are incredibly lucky in Maine that Mr. Alfond had that vision and that thought, and obviously his philanthropy goes well beyond even the Alfond grant. So if your student was born in 2008, they may have been awarded the $500 Alfond grant for their future higher education expenses. And then on the next slide, we'll talk about some of that eligibility. So in 2008, that was our pilot year. So the $500 Alfond grant was launched as a pilot program, and it was only available to babies born at Maine General Hospital who also had a NextGen account, a NextGen 529 account opened for their benefit before their first birthday. So that's a small amount. There's about 650 or so that were born at Maine General and chose to open up a NextGen account before that child turned one. So again, a small amount that pilot year, but there are some that were just recently in that graduating class. Between 2009 and 2012, the Alfond Grant was made available to all babies born Maine residents, but they still had to have that NextGen 529 account opened for their benefit before their first birthday in order to receive the $500 Alfond grant. In 2013, the Harold Alfond Foundation, who funds all of the Alfond grants, said, you know what, not everyone is receiving the Alfond grant. That was really the vision of Mr. Alfond. And so they removed that stipulation that a NextGen account had to be opened before the child turned one, and now they automatically receive the grant. So it gets a little confusing, but we're always happy to answer any questions and clear up any confusion that folks may have. But there are sort of three different types of eligibility. So what is
So
next? Oh, you want to do this
no,
one? You can
you go
go.
ahead. No, you go ahead,
Oh,
Kate. No, you go ahead.
sorry. So NextGen 529 is Maine's education savings plan. It's the plan that many Maine families use for higher education. It's also the education savings plan that the Alfond Scholarship Foundation uses to invest the Alfond Grant funds. So that's where that connection is. And then I can take this real quick. And earnings in a NextGen 529 account can grow tax-free from federal and state income taxes. Withdrawals are tax-free when withdrawn to pay for qualified higher education expenses. And so those expenses are defined in the Section 529 tax code. But generally, they can include tuition and fees as well as books and supplies required by a course.
Okay. So one of the questions that we receive a lot is what's the difference between an Alfond grant and a NextGen account? What's the connection? How do they work together? So the $500 Alfond grant is indeed a grant. It's like a scholarship. The Alfond Scholarship Foundation owns these funds and has invested them on your child's behalf. And as you've seen, these funds have grown over the years. Kate, I'm not sure at this point how much those initial $500 grants are worth, but it's quite a bit more now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's over. So those first babies born in 2008, their $500 grant is worth over $2,000.
Yeah, so I mean that's incredibly exciting. Given the initial design of the Alfond Grant program, if your child was born before 2013, as Kate mentioned, and has an Alfond Grant, that means that someone close to them opened up a NextGen account on their behalf and named your child as the beneficiary before their first birthday. Because the NextGen account was opened, there has been and continues to be the opportunity for you and others to contribute your own money. Additionally, when contributions were or are made, there's also the potential to earn Maine matching grants. Maine matching grants are owned and invested by FAME on behalf of your student. So what's really cool is that once that Alfond account is opened, or was opened all those years ago, the Alfond grant was linked to the NextGen account. So everything in your scenario lives within that NextGen account. So tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about, determining the value. We're going to talk a little bit about qualified expenses. If some of you were here with us for the presentation that we did last month, it is a little bit of a review, hopefully reinforcing some of the things that we talked about, but we had more people this time. And so we're assuming that some of you didn't attend last month's presentation. So I hope you'll bear with us while we talk about a few things prior to talking about how do you actually get your money. Now, as just mentioned, once the NextGen account was opened, the Alfond grant was linked to the NextGen account. This means that when you review your NextGen statements or you go to your online account, you'll potentially see three buckets of money, maybe even a few more. One of those buckets is going to be your Alfond grant. The second is going to be your contributions and earnings, which maybe you put into a couple of different buckets. And then the third bucket is going to be Maine matching grants, assuming that you have been awarded any of those. So when looking at your Alfond account, you'll be able to see the value of your NextGen contributions and earnings, your Alfond grant, and any Maine matching grants all in one place. So now let's transition to what the funds can be used for. What are those qualifying expenses that Kate mentioned that are in the IRS code? We're going to hopefully go over them tonight in a way that you don't have to go look them up, but the references are going to be there if you need them. So the funds from each of the three buckets have slightly different definitions of qualifying expenses. So let's start by discussing where and for what expenses all three buckets can be used. Okay, so first, all of the funds, Alfond, matching grants, your contributions and earnings can all be used for things that we consider kind of those traditional expenses at more traditional type higher educational institutions. So the funds can be used, all three buckets worth, can be used at most trade and career schools, public schools or private colleges and universities, in state, out of state, even out of the country in some cases. The key to being an eligible institution where these funds can be used is that the school has to be approved by the Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Education, to receive federal financial aid funds. So if they qualify to receive federal financial aid funds, so if you've got a school that you're looking at and they talk about doing the FAFSA so that you can receive federal financial aid, you know that they are considered an eligible institution, and any of the funds can be used at those eligible institutions. Now let's talk about what the expenses from all three buckets, what can they actually be used for? What are those qualifying expenses? So again, those qualifying expenses are the things that we think of kind of as traditional higher education expenses, everything from tuition to fees, books and supplies, and even room and board or housing and food if the student is enrolled half-time. So again, all three buckets of money can be used for those purposes. Now, additionally, the Alfond grant and your contributions and earnings can be used to pay for qualified expenses for registered certified apprenticeships, which includes even the required tools and supplies, which is often with apprenticeships where the expenses really come in, as well as recognized post-secondary credentials. So the Alfond grant, which Kate mentioned, was founded by Harold Alfond, and he had this vision that the grant would create opportunity for Maine kids to pursue all sorts of different types of post-secondary pathways, with the end result that we would have a really educated workforce in Maine with people with all sorts of different types of skills. So for some students, that best pathway maybe is an apprenticeship or a certification or an industry credential. And so what's really exciting and relatively new, to be honest with you, is that both the Alfond grant and your NextGen contributions and earnings can be used for those pathways as well as the more traditional pathways. As an example, my youngest son is pursuing a plumbing certificate, taking a little while to find his way, but that seems to be the path that he's on, and we're excited about that. And there's the cost of the program, which is relatively affordable, but we've also seen the list of tools and supplies, and that's where there are some more significant expenses. And it's so exciting that the Alfond grant, as well as, again, any NextGen contributions and earnings, can be used for those sorts of expenses. So that's incredibly helpful. Now, currently, Maine matching grants cannot be used for these expenses, as grant funds can only be paid to the eligible institution of higher education. Again, those ones that are approved by Federal Department of Education to receive and participate in the federal financial aid program. But do stay tuned. Things do change over time, and it could be that there is a change. But for now, Maine matching grants could not be used for those sorts of expenses related to apprenticeships or credentials. And again, if you have any questions, pop them in the chat and we'll stop periodically to answer them. Now, when it comes to using your NextGen contributions and earnings, you have even more qualified expenses. These include some K-12 expenses, as well as the ability to use the funds to repay education loans, even for a sibling. One of the common questions that we get is, what happens if my student doesn't pursue education after high school? Now, you're here tonight. Your kiddos have probably just graduated. Most likely, they are planning to use these funds. That's why you're here. But for anyone who might listen later or every now and then plans change, we want you to know that there are multiple options. So one option is to do nothing. So for example, if a student said, you know what, I need to wait a little bit before I go, that's fine. When it comes to 529 contributions and earnings, there's no age limit. So sometimes it can take a little bit longer to figure out the plan for education and training. So one option is just to hold tight. Another option is to transfer the contributions and earnings, the money you've put in and earned money on, to another family member, which could include a sibling, a parent, a child, or even cousin. So the definition of an eligible family member is really broad. A third option is to roll any unused contributions and earnings into a Roth IRA for that student. Now, there are some limitations, like you have to wait for the account to have been open for 15 years, which probably is the case for all of you. There are some other limitations as well. It's a newer option, but just something good to know about. And when it comes to your contributions and earnings, you also have the option to withdraw these funds and use them however you would like. Now, if you did that, you would need to pay taxes on any earnings, because keep in mind you put in after tax money. You've already paid taxes on your contributions. But if you've had earnings and you decide you just want to take all of the money that you put in and take that out of your fund, you would then pay taxes on those earnings and a 10% penalty. This, again, does not apply to your contributions because you already paid taxes on those. Okay, so there's not going to be a test on this. But I do want you to know that we have created a chart, because even we sometimes are like, okay, what can these funds be used for when we're talking about this type of money out of which particular bucket? So this chart is something that you can refer back to. What I'll do tomorrow is I will send a follow-up email to you. And in that email, I will include the link to this presentation so that you'll have this chart handy in case you want to double check what you can use the funds for. But you can just see that your NextGen contributions and earnings, that's where you have the most flexibility. The Alfond Grant has a lot of flexibility as well. Main matching grants, maybe not quite so much, but again, is available for all of those traditional expenses that probably many people are planning to use their funds for. All right. Do we have something in the chat? I'm just gonna.
We do. Just a quick question, Mila, and it's about withdrawal of funds to pay to the higher education institution. I'll just read the question directly. I have a payment plan established with the university my daughter is attending for tuition fees, room and board. The plan has monthly withdrawals from my bank account. Can I request that Merrill direct this monthly amount to my bank account, or do I need to redirect the university to draw directly from Merrill? So it's really about how do we get the funds from the 529 and or Alfond, because this individual doesn't indicate which they have, into the university account to pay that tuition and fees and room and board.
Yes, that's a great question. We are going to go into more detail on this in just a little bit. So I will just say that, whether or not the funds can be directed into your bank account, and some of that does depend on whether or not you have a Merrill Lynch account. So let's hold tight on this and go into more detail in a few moments, and then we can see if any questions still remain at that point in time. Okay.
Thank you, Mila.
All right, now we have a few other things that we'd like you to just be thinking about as you're getting ready to withdraw funds. Again, there are some differences among the three buckets of money. So let's talk about those additional items, and that will help you figure out which of your funds you want to use first. So everyone's situation might be slightly different, but generally speaking, we recommend that you use your Alfond grants first. And a primary reason for that is because these funds do need to be used by your student's 28th birthday. Now, that's still a lot of time, 10 years, but it is something to keep in mind. And if the funds aren't used by the time your student is 28, they will be rescinded and then earmarked for new babies. So they'll just be recycled basically and go to other kiddos. But you do have 10 years. That, though, is not the case when it comes to your NextGen and any main matching grants. There are no age limitations for your NextGen contributions and earnings and your main matching grants. You do not have to use those by the age of 28. You could use those years and years from now. So no age restriction on those funds. Additionally, you want to keep in mind who can use the funds. So for both the Alfond grant and the main matching grants, those can only be used by the original recipient or beneficiary. So those funds cannot be transferred to a sibling or another family member. And maybe that's not surprising. Maybe you always have been under the assumption that the funds could only be used for that kiddo. But by comparison, NextGen contributions and earnings can potentially be transferred to another eligible family member with no tax implications. So a few moments ago, I talked about the fact that money can be transferred to other children, could be transferred to yourself, maybe even cousins, and all of that under some circumstances. So when it comes to the funds, who can use them does differ depending on the bucket of money that you're talking about, with Alfond Grant and Maine matching grants only being able to be used for that designated recipient or beneficiary. So what we just want to be sure that you know is that you do have flexibility with these funds, but oftentimes what we think about is having you use your Alfond grant first, and then your Maine matching grants, and then leaving your funds till later, because they do have the maximum amount of flexibility. But everyone's situation is a little bit different, and we are absolutely here to talk with you about that, if you ever want to run an idea by us or have a deeper conversation about that. Another important consideration is related to where the funds can be sent and who they can be paid to. So what I mean by that is currently the Maine matching grant is, again, the more restrictive of all of the funds, and these funds can only be paid to an eligible institution. So keep in mind that they can be used for all of the expenses that we mentioned earlier: tuition, fees, books, supplies, housing, and food. They can be used for all of those purposes, but the money does have to be sent to the eligible institution. Now, when they are sent to the eligible institution originally, they'll be used to pay down that bill. Once the bill, if it is fully paid, then you'll have a credit. And so there'll be that excess money on the account. That credit, those funds, can be released to the student and used for other eligible expenses that are not charged by the school. Okay, so the money in the case of Maine matching grants has to go to the school, but it doesn't mean that it's not available to use for some of those other expenses. And in some cases, like with the books and supplies, it might be that there's a credit on the account once the funds come in, and then you can take those funds and buy the books and supplies off campus, or repay yourself for books that you have already purchased. The Alfond grant can only be paid to an eligible institution, or a registered or certified apprenticeship program, or a recognized post-secondary credential program. So a little bit more flexibility there with the Alfond grant. And then by comparison, your NextGen contributions and earnings can be paid to the eligible institution. That still works just fine. Or the eligible program in the case of apprenticeships or credentials, but it can also be paid to you, the account owner, or to the account beneficiary. So for example, years ago, my oldest son was in college and he was living off campus. So what I did with some of our NextGen contributions and earnings, the money we put in and the growth from that, is I had that sent directly to me so that I could use that to pay his rent. So the NextGen funds, your contributions and earnings, are where you're going to have the most flexibility and the most options as to where the money can be sent. Okay, now we're going to pivot a little bit, and we're going to talk about the Alfond grant, Maine matching grants, and how they're counted when it comes to financial aid. And in a moment, we'll talk about NextGen contributions and earnings and the fact that those are counted differently, okay? So first of all, we're going to start with the Alfond grant and Maine matching grants again. And any earnings, as Kate mentioned, that $500 Alfond grant is now worth over $2,000. Those funds are going to be treated as a scholarship. So that's similar to the scholarships that your student might have received at high school graduation or class night. The scholarships should be reported to the financial aid office at the school your student is attending. So if you've been to orientation, there might have been discussion about the fact that if your student does have any scholarships, that those have been and need to be reported to the financial aid office. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that you will only report the amount that you will be using for the upcoming year, not the total current value of all of the grants. So for example, what I mean by that is you may decide to use all of the Alfond grant in that first year, but maybe you want to wait and use the Maine matching grants in the second year. In that situation, what you would do is you would only report to the financial aid office the value of the Alfond grant, okay? You don't need to report the value of the Maine matching grant if you're not going to use it in the upcoming year. So for that first year, you would only report the Alfond grant and not anything about the Maine matching grants. Now, you'll want to report all scholarships, whether they're the Alfond grant, Maine matching grants, any other scholarships, to the financial aid office as soon as possible. Financial aid offices are required to consider scholarships in combination with any other aid that the student has been offered by the school. And I'm an old financial aid person, worked in a financial aid office for years, and there are rules around this. So there are occasions when students have enough in the way of scholarships that adjustments to other types of aid may be required. Now, generally speaking, schools in Maine are great about only adjusting aid if they absolutely have to. There are rules in the financial aid world that do prevent students from having more aid than it costs to attend that school. So there are situations where sometimes an adjustment might be needed, but Maine schools usually only do this if they absolutely have to. They do have to make an adjustment. What schools typically do is first they adjust any need-based loans or any work study before adjusting any grants. But that's why you want to let the school know about any of these funds as soon as possible. What can happen is if the school learns about these scholarships later, like imagine well into the fall, they won't have the flexibility to adjust something like work study if the student has already earned their work study funds. So letting the school know as early as possible means that there are the maximum number of options available. And I also want you to keep in mind that you can reach out to the schools, the financial aid office specifically, and let them know about other school-related expenses. And we recommend that you do that, especially in the case where it may be possible that aid has to be adjusted. For example, if a student purchases a computer, you can let the school know that. And with the receipt, most schools will adjust their budget for that particular student to recognize that expense. What happens is they recognize that outside expense, that computer expense, for example, that creates room for more aid, including scholarships. So there's a lot of things that can be done to preserve a student's financial aid eligibility. And I think we all share the goal that we want the student to maximize their financial aid eligibility and make school as affordable as possible. And again, as a former financial aid person, I want you to be sure that you connect with the financial aid office, you talk with them, you make a friend in the financial aid office because they can be really, really helpful as you navigate this process. All right, so how will you know if you have to report scholarships to the financial aid office, or how will you know what you have available? So to keep track of the amount that you withdraw, that's going to be really important. So if it comes from either the Alfond Grant or the Maine matching grant buckets, those are the amounts that you are going to report to the financial aid office. But again, only if you are going to be using those funds in the upcoming year. So again, if you decided to use your Alfond Grant, you can see here we have 3 buckets. If you wanted to use your Alfond Grant that first year and you were going to take all of it out, then you would report that full amount to the financial aid office. But if you were going to wait and not use your matching grants until next year, you wouldn't need to report those funds to the financial aid office or anywhere at this point in time. Again, I'm sure there are going to be questions, so please go ahead and put those in the chat, and we can stop periodically. We'll stop, and at the end, we'll have time for questions as well. So now let's talk about your NextGen contributions and earnings. These are handled differently than scholarship funds. So instead of reporting those to the financial aid office, you report them when you file the FAFSA, which theoretically you've already filed the FAFSA for the upcoming year if your student is planning to attend in the fall of 2026. If you haven't, it's not too late, but we do recommend doing it as early as possible. When filing the FAFSA, and you do have to file the FAFSA every single year, some people are required to report certain assets on their FAFSA application. Now, not everyone will see asset questions. And if you don't see questions about assets, it means that you were not required to report them. So for example, families who earn less than $60,000 per year typically do not have to provide any information about any of their assets, nor do people who have any federally means-tested benefits, including things like MaineCare or TANF or WIC. Those individuals don't have to provide any asset information. Okay, so if you don't see the question, don't worry about it. You're good to go. If you do see a question about having to report assets, you'll only report the current value of your contributions and earnings, okay? So when we're talking about what has to go on the FAFSA, The only funds that have to be reported on the FAFSA are your contributions and earnings, not any of the Alfond grant or Maine matching grants, okay? Those get reported to the financial aid office in the year that you're using them. If you're not using them that year, you don't have to report them anywhere or to anyone. But your contributions and earnings, you will report on the FAFSA, not directly to the financial aid office, but on the FAFSA when you file the FAFSA for that year of the FAFSA that you're completing. Now, additionally, you'll only report the current value for that particular student when you're completing the FAFSA. You don't list the total value of all of the accounts that you own. So for example, if you have multiple children, and so you have multiple NextGen accounts, so maybe you have one for each of them, you will only list the value for that one student, not the total value of all of the NextGen contributions earnings that you own for all of your kiddos. Okay. Hopefully everyone's doing okay, but we've got another chart here with a summary of these other important considerations. So here is the summary of what we just talked about. So the fact that, who owns the funds, we talk a little bit about that. We talked about who can use the funds, the age limitations, where the funds can be sent to or where they have to be sent to, and how the funds are counted. Okay, so hopefully that's a resource that will be helpful. Next, we're going to dive into what I think you're probably expecting us to talk about, and maybe you thought we were talking about a little bit earlier, but I thought it was really important that before we talk about, withdrawing your funds, what you can use them for and where you can have the money sent. So now let's move into withdrawal of funds. So the disbursement request, first of all, has to be made by the account owner. So that's just something that you want to keep in mind, that even though you might have an account and the beneficiary is your child, if you're the owner of the account, you are the one that does have to make the request to have the funds dispersed. Additionally, how much you make depends, how you make the request depends on the type of NextGen account you have. And there are 3 possible options. So many of you, I think probably the majority of you maybe, have what's called a direct account, which is likely the case if you opened the account yourself within the first year after your child was born and you haven't changed the type of account that you have. So if you, all those years ago, 17 years ago or so, opened up an account and you did it yourself, you likely have a direct account. Now, it is possible that you have a Connect account, which is also an account that you would have opened yourself. Connect accounts are newer though, and have only been available for the last several years. So if you haven't, taken action to change your direct account over to a Connect account, then it's very unlikely that you have a Connect account. But on the off chance that someone does have a Connect account, we will review that as well. And then a third option is that you may have a Select account, and that's the one where you worked with a financial advisor to set up and manage the account. Now, if you're not sure what type of account you have, that first year when a child is born sometimes, gosh, it's hard to remember what's going on day to day. So if you can't remember what you did 17 or 18 years ago, you can always reach out to us at FAME. You can call us at the numbers listed here, and we can help you figure that out. Okay, so please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions at all. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to walk through the disbursement request option based on the type of account that you have. So we're going to start with direct accounts, and then we'll talk about Connect accounts, and then we'll end with Select accounts. So again, I'm guessing a lot of you have direct accounts. So if you have a direct account, you'll be working with Merrill Edge to withdraw your funds. And you have 3 options. You can withdraw the funds using a paper withdrawal request form. You can withdraw your funds by making a request if you have an online account, or you can do it via phone. So let's walk through each one of these. Gotta love all the layers. All right, so if you want to make a withdrawal using a paper form, and I will send a blank copy of this form in the email, then you will start by providing account and beneficiary information. So I've shown you a couple of snippets of what this form looks like, but obviously the full form is a bit longer. So the first thing you're going to do is start providing account and beneficiary information. The next thing you'll do is provide information on the institution the student will be attending, including the mailing address where the check should be sent. So one of the things that you're going to want to do is figure out, what's the mailing address. Usually that's included with the bill for funds to be sent. Now, as we talked about earlier, if you're withdrawing Alfond Grant or Maine matching grant funds, these funds must be sent to the eligible institution or program. Okay, so that's why it's going to be really important to have that information available if you're planning to use your Alfond grant or your Maine matching grants. If you're withdrawing your NextGen contributions and earnings, you can have the funds sent to the eligible institution. That's absolutely fine. And that works really well, especially if your student is going to be living on campus and they have their housing expenses there as well. Or you can have the funds sent directly to the account owner or to the beneficiary. So again, with your own funds and the earnings associated with that, you do have more flexibility. Now, as noted in this tip, if you're sending the funds to multiple recipients, we recommend that you complete a separate withdrawal form for each payee. So what do I mean by that? For example, if you want to use your Alfond grant, this first year, you're going to complete one withdrawal form and be sure to list the details for the eligible institution or program. Okay, so that's if you want to use your Alfond grant. But if you also want to have some of your contributions and earnings sent directly to you, because maybe you do want to go ahead and get, those books and supplies purchased, and you're going to, buy them wherever it happens to be the most affordable place to buy them. So you want the funds to come to you. You certainly can do that. But in that scenario, you'd want to complete a separate withdrawal form and request that the funds be sent to you. Okay, so you want to have that information available, but I'm going to send you a copy of the withdrawal request form so you can take a look at it and see all of those options. Now, one other option you have is to request the funds via your Merrill Edge account. So maybe not everyone has an online account, but if you do have an online account, this is another option for you. Now, if you're withdrawing your Alfond grant or Maine matching grants, you can select how much you want to withdraw. So I'm just showing you here. If you log into your account, you're going to see, your buckets of money, and you can see how much you have in each of the buckets, and you can figure out how much you want to withdraw. Maybe you want to take out everything, or maybe you want to take out a little bit of this year and then save some of it for future years. Those are all decisions that you get to make. And again, we're always here to talk about your options if you would like to do that. If you're withdrawing your Alfond grant or Maine matching grants, again, you can select how much you want to withdraw at this point in time, and you'll have the funds sent to the eligible institution, okay? Because remember, those funds have to go to the eligible institution. But there is a drop-down list to pick from, and so what you'll do is you'll pick the school from the drop-down list, and then you'll enter in the mailing address. And it's a good idea to list the student's ID on that memo line, or at least a little bit more detail so they're sure who that money is intended for. Now, if you're withdrawing your own NextGen contributions and earnings, you select how much you would like to withdraw, just like with the other funds, and you can have those funds sent to the eligible institution or to the account owner or account beneficiary. Okay, we just talked about that. That's possible to do when you're using the online process as well. If you have your funds sent to you as the account owner or the beneficiary, you'll need to request 2 separate checks. You can see up here, you'll click on checks when you want to have a check sent. And so you'll go through that process twice. If you want to have your funds, you want to take out your grant funds, and you're going to have those sent to the school, you'll do 1 check request. If you then want to have some of your funds dispersed, but you want them sent to you, then you're going to have to do a 2nd check request. If you want to have your Alfond grant funds sent to your institution, or because you need to have them sent to the institution, and you want your own funds sent to the institution, then you can just do 1 check request to the school. Okay? Again, questions, please let me know, and we'll address them as they come up. You also have the option to call Merrill Edge and make a verbal request. So that option always exists as well. I'm going to, like I said, send along that withdrawal form, because even if this is your preferred method, it's a good idea to check out the form ahead of time, and of course the account values, so that you'll know what your plan is. So you'll need to have your NextGen account number. You'll want to know how much you want to withdraw from which funds and where you're going to have the money sent, and then the mailing addresses associated with that. So that's what you're going to do if you have a direct account. So 3 options, and so you can pick which one is going to work best for you. Now, let's talk about a Connect account. If you have a Connect account, you have 3 options as well. But in this case, you're going to be working with Vestwell to withdraw your funds. So if you're getting statements from Vestwell, that would mean that you have a Connect account. Now, there are some similarities and some differences when compared to direct accounts. One of the similarities is that there are still 3 options. You can do a paper withdrawal form, you can do an online request, but there are some limitations there, or you can do a verbal request by phone. So that said, the online request only allows you to withdraw your own contributions and earnings. So with a Connect account, you cannot withdraw any of your Alfond Grant or your main matching grants. You cannot do that online. And that's because there's not the option to send them to the school, okay? So if you've got a Connect account, you're going to either need to, and you want your Alfond Grant funds, you're going to either use a form or you're going to make a phone call. Okay, and we're going to talk about what happens with your own money in a moment. So let's explore these options and start by talking about what to do if you're using a withdrawal form. So the Connect series has its own withdrawal form, which is different than the one used for the Direct series. To request your Alfond Grant or main matching grants, you must use either this form or make a verbal request, which I was just kind of alluding to. Using this form or making a verbal request are the only options if you want your own contributions and earnings sent to the school. The bottom line is with a Connect account, it's just not possible to have money sent to the school. When using this form, you're going to start by providing account and beneficiary information. And then next, you're going to indicate which funds you want to withdraw and how much you want to withdraw. So very similar process. You can, as you can see here, you can withdraw all of your main matching grants, or you can withdraw a portion of them. You can withdraw all of your Alfond Grant, or you can withdraw just a portion, depending on what works for you. Then you'll indicate where the funds are to be sent, which must be the eligible school or program with the grant funds. So you'll need the school's you'll need the school's mailing address. For your own funds, you have a variety of options as to where the funds can be sent. Okay, so for your own funds, you can have them sent to you. You can have them sent to the account beneficiary. So you've got a couple of options there. Actually, I'm going to take that back. My understanding is that you can only have the funds sent to you at the address on record with the program, with Vestwell. We're still learning too. Okay, so that's where we are coming to now. It is possible to request funds through your online Vestwell account. However, you can only withdraw your own contributions and earnings through this process, and there is no option to send the funds directly to the school. Instead, the only option is to have the funds sent to you as the account owner at the address listed on file. Okay? And then you can also make a verbal request. So that's the third option, is to call Vestwell at that number that's listed here on the screen. And through this process, you can make the same requests as were possible using the withdrawal form. Again, it's very helpful to review the Connect withdrawal form prior to calling Vestwell so that you have all of the necessary information available. And then last but not least, but this one is really simple, what do you do if you want to withdraw your funds and you have a select account? If you have a select account, you are going to work with your financial advisor to request the disbursement. So you're going to reach out to them and they are going to help you make that request and get those funds. Now, if you have a select account, but you don't know who your financial advisor is, which is very possible, you certainly can give us a call at FAME, 1-800-228-3734. The phone number is on slide 20. And you can have us help you with that so that you can figure out who you need to contact to get your funds. All right, we're in the home stretch here, everybody. Just a few closing reminders. I know this has been a ton of information. However, this session was recorded, and we will be sending the link to everyone. That won't come tomorrow. That has to go through legal to be, approved before we send it out. But that will be coming your way, and we'll automatically send it to everyone who is registered for this session. The recording will also be posted to the NextGen website, so it will be available there to view again if you would like to, or maybe just sections of it if you'd like to do that again down the road. Now, as always, you want to be sure you keep your contact information up to date. Important information is coming your way, and we want to be sure that you receive it. And if you'd like to meet virtually with one of the famed team members to discuss your NextGen account, your Alfond grant, or your main matching grants, or if you have questions related to financial aid, you can always schedule a free one-on-one virtual appointment with us. Now, we have these appointments available all year long, so just know that we will be here when you need us. And please don't hesitate to reach out. As Kate said, you are our first group. We're learning from you, and so it's really helpful for us to hear what questions you have, so that we can provide information proactively to people, especially as we have more and more students ready to use their Alfond and other grants. So here are some important links to resources. So, if you want to learn more about the Alfond grant, you can go to myalfondgrant.org. There's additional Alfond grant information also on the NextGen website. We have the terms and conditions. So that's where, for example, you can find out what constitutes a family member if you ever wanted to transfer any funds. And we do have the Alfond guidelines listed here as well. So hopefully you find these resources very helpful. So we are so excited that you joined us tonight. Here's the disclosure that we're required to provide to you, but we are here to answer questions if you would like us, or if you have any that you would like us to go ahead and try to answer.